Rules: 21 AI drivers assigned to 11 teams randomly. All drivers will be given random stats at the start of the season. An extra driver will be randomly assigned for each team as reserve. Calendar will consist of 16 rounds, randomly generated. Kevit factor: for each race, except first round, there will be a 10% of probabilities for a driver to get Kevit. When a driver has Kevit, the reserve driver of his team will replace him. The random calendar will leave us with the season opening at Canada, followed by Italy and Brazil, including the 2 races at United States, Great Britain and Belgium, but no Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Imola, nor Portugal. Season ends in Netherlands. We will enter the 21 drivers, including the 20 official ones and Oscar Piastri, who will be on my teammate, and generate the teams, which are in order of 2021 championship, except Red Bull, that is Team 1, for having last driver champion. And these are the results: Albon and Piastri to Red Bull, Alonso and Verstappen to Mercedes, Sainz remains at Ferrari, with Tsunoda, Norris also remains in McLaren, and Vettel will be the other driver. Bottas and Perez go to Alpine, Russell and Leclerc to AlphaTauri, Joe and Ricciardo to Aston Martin, Ocon and Stroll to Williams, Latifi and Schumacher to Alfa Romeo, Hamilton to Haas with Magnussen, who stays, and Pierre Gasly to Audi, which will be our team for my team career mode. Now let's go with the reserve ones, including drivers such as Mazepin and Lord Avier, with this result. Finally, we need to assign random stats for the 4 kind of abilities to each driver, resulting in some interesting results. Hamilton is the best overall rated driver alongside Magnussen, so this means Haas is the best lineup. Stroll and Piastri are also really well rated. Russell and Leclerc have good overall rating too. Then we have drivers such as Alonso or Schumacher, and on the other hand, the worst ones are Ricciardo, Gasly and Vettel, so they seem to be very unlucky. Verstappen is also a low rating, and both Ferraris too. Now it is finally time to move on to the first race in Canada. Fernando Alonso really wants this championship and showed it getting the first pole position. Alex Albon started next to him, but Lewis Hamilton overtook them both in the start and led the race. When the pit wind opened, Hamilton stepped first, but Alonso remained on track with his medium tiers. Hamilton had some traffic, and when Alonso stopped, he was in front, but with hard tiers, because the AI drivers usually make stupid strategies. Albon was not having a good race, but it was even worse when he spun and caused a safety car. He even got disqualified for stopping on track. With only 2 laps to go, the race resumed. Alonso had it all under control, but his teammate Verstappen was suffering to save some points, and failed to it, as Latifi and Lopez passed him. Alonso did the job and got the first win of the season, followed by Hamilton and Piastri, who got the fastest lap. For the second race, we need to see if someone gets Kevit. For it, we will enter 100 entries, including the 21 computer drivers, and generate 10 teams. Every driver that falls into team number 1 will get Kevit and miss the race. Vettel was not lucky with his stats, but it became worse when he was the first driver to get Kevit and miss a race. This time I forgot to save the replay, and I only managed to get the random highlights. It was an okay race, with a safety car at the start thanks to Latifi, who crashed Stroll at the end of the first sector. Thanks to his default stats, Sargent had a good race and fought in the front for the podium but missed it at the end. Anyway, he seems to be the only one in McLaren capable of getting points. Oscar Piastri won this time, and Hamilton and Fernando were out of the podium, so Piastri, with the fastest lap again, becomes new championship leader. For the third race in Brazil, nobody got Kevin. This race will feature a sprint race. Russell was fastest in qualifying and got pole, but Hamilton got him at the start. Sainz continued having very bad luck and had to pit when running in the top 10. In the previous race he also showed good pace, but an incident at the start made him not scoring any points. Hamilton won a sprint and was ready to become the third different driver to win a race, but it will not be that easy. Leclerc was aggressive at the start and fought with Piastri. Hamilton skipped, but Fernando Alonso was showing very good pace and won the race. He overtook Leclerc in lap 5. Leclerc then was out of the podium. He reached the second place in front of Piastri for the second stint, and fought the rest of the race with Hamilton. At lap 13, Joe had to retire when he was last, but nobody gave a fuck about it. Fernando finally got Hamilton in the final lap, and got his second win of the year, but Piastri was still the leader of the championship. For the fifth race, in Austin, Leclerc was the fortunate guy, and got Kevin. Robert Schwartzman replaced him. Last time, I forgot to give Sargent new stats, so he had the default ones, but now I remembered and gave random ones to Schwartzman. Alonso started first. It was a clean start and George Russell overtook Albon to put himself into second place. Piastri also passed Albon. Lance Stroll surprised everybody in qualifying, getting position 6, and kept it at the start. In the pack, Max Verstappen was still searching for his first points of the season, but it looked hard once again, despite starting in the top 10. He damaged his car and had to stop just at lap 2 and change his front wing, ruining his race. He was not the only one, as Lance Stroll also broke his and had to stop, losing important points. Meantime, everything changed when Sergio Perez's engine failed and he decided to just rage quit the game, causing a safety car, and making everybody stop. Or almost everybody, because Bettis decided to completely ruin Alpine race and not to stop, when he was comfortably in the top 10. He was very slow and the drivers behind tried to pass and get advantage, as Fernando tried. Bettis only stayed for one lap, just to appear in the broadcast, and then pitted. But Hamilton wanted to appear too and span in lap 10, losing his 5th place and all the points. From here to the end nothing happened, and Fernando's got his 3rd win of the season. Sainz overtook Norris in the last corner to get his first point. Alonso now led the standings. For next race, Kevin hit again, and this time it was twice, as Ocon and Norris got it. Ironically, this are good news to McLaren. Mazepin returns, and with good stats, as well as Sargent, who had his second opportunity. George Russell started on pole, in front of both Haas drivers. It was not a good qualifying for Oscar Piastri, and he needs to recover during the race. On the other hand, Ricciardo had a strong qualifying and wants his first points of the season, as well as Nikita Mazepin, who was doing better than Stroll this weekend. Logan Sargent was still proving he was the only McLaren hope for this year, and was in 5th position defending from Alonso. Oscar Piastri was not performing good enough, and lost position with Juan Lopez, the human driver. Latifi was searching for points, but looked hard to achieve as he was also losing positions. Piastri passed Stroll on lap 5, the same lap in which Nicolas Latifi span onto the gravel and lost all his chances. Piastri had to try something different and waited a few laps for his pit stop. And it worked, as he returned to track in 10th, just behind Perez and in front of all the pack. In lap 8, Max Verstappen was told in the radio that Fernando was faster than him, and then suddenly blocked his front wheel and lost position to him, but it was still the best race of the season for Verstappen, and points were pezzible. In front, Russell was losing time to Hamilton in the rest, and it became critical when Hamilton reached him with 2 laps to go. Passed him on the straight, but Russell's pain was not over yet, and Magnussen also tried to pass on the straight in the last lap. Didn't pass yet, but he did an heroical move on the 130 and got second place. Then, in the last corner, Yuki Tsunoda also passed Russell and got podium in home soil. Russell was devastated and Hamilton was extremely happy, as he was back into the title fight. Piastri just got 1 point at the end and Sargent passed Verstappen, but he still got 6 points for Mercedes, but came finally. One extra race in Australia, Alonso got Kevin and became the first title contender to lose a race for this reason. Porsche replaced him, and in fact was a pretty good replacement, because he performed as good as Fernando. He got 3rd position in the first lap spot passing Bottas, who impressed in qualifying. This time, Hamilton was untouchable to get his 2nd win of the season, and Piastri, who started in 9th place, was pushing as much as he could to reach the podium. Overtook his teammate Albon and Porsche in the last laps to get 3rd position, while Latifi crashed in the last lap of the race. Kevin hit hard for next race, and 4 drivers got it. One of them was Hamilton. Other was Gasly, so good news to Audi, because they can use their best weapon, the Acura Ragunathon. Robert Sportsman returned as well as Porsche for the 2nd time in a row, but in Verstappen's place this time. Butler was the one that replaced Hamilton and impressed everyone by getting pole position and defending it during the start. Audi was happy to see both of their drivers fighting for top 10, until Lord Acura invoked chaos in lap 3. Track was dry, and Alpine took his time to demonstrate in his home race that they are a joke team by letting Perez be leader of the race while the safety car was out, with intermediate tiers, just to stop in the next lap and get slipped once, like everybody, and fall into last place. When race resumed, Porsche retired in his home race, so very bad. Butler seemed to have everything under control, but he lost a bit of pace and, on the same lap, Piastri and Alonso passed him. So the race ended that way, and Piastri left the championship, in front of Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. In Austria, 4 drivers were out again, including Hamilton for the 2nd time in a row. The only new guy was De Vries, in Aston Martin. Russell started first the sprint, but Sargent, back in the McLaren seat, passed him to win the sprint. There were several incidents, one involving Sainz and Fernando, so both ruined their races, and potentially their Sunday race. On Sunday, it was sunny, and Butler was on fire again, passing Sargent in lap 1. Piastri had good pace, and during the pit stops, he reached the podium by passing Sargent, while Fernando is trying to recover, but the same as the previous day happened to him, so no chances of getting any single point. Vettel was ready to score for the second time in a row, and finally seemed to be enjoying this season, fighting with his friend Mick Schumacher. After this race, Piastri has a massive advantage on Alonso and Hamilton. No Kvyat for the 9th race in Great Britain. Piastri started first and Abadi was able to challenge him. He just dominated the race and extended his lead in the championship, with Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso completing the podium, but things were going to change in the next races. Leclerc got Kvyat once again, and Tsunoda and Bottas got it too, so Tatiana Calderon and Ralph Boschung will have one shot at Miami. Hamilton got pole position, and Boschung was surprisingly good in third. Piastri had damage in the first lap and needed to box, but things were gonna be even worse for him. Boschung had more pace than Hamilton and treated the overtake. After the stops, he was on virtual leg, but fucked it up when spinning. It was then that Piastri, trying to retake positions, spun and crashed, causing a safety car. Tatiana Calderon was then leading and stopped under the safety car, coming back to track on 7th. Even worse news for Piastri that Fernando Alonso got the leg, and managed to win the race, with Hamilton in 2nd place. In the last laps, something weird happened to Calderon as she just dropped down and was losing all the positions, but nobody found the reason yet, maybe some floor damage. The Chin's Grand Prix was not too much fun, and Alonso dominated it from start to finish, while Piastri was stuck in the midfield, and Ocon, that had a brilliant Saturday and started 2nd, dropped down to 11th, so he didn't get a single point. Alonso then got the lead of the championship with 5 races remaining. It was time for Alonso's home race, and also time for Albon to get Kvyat and let Jesus Christ race for one day with Red Bull. The race was similar to China, and the top 3 didn't change along the race, with Alonso securing another win. Leclerc was doing good in 4th, but in the last but one lap, his engine failed him and retired, allowing Antonio Giovinazzi to get 1 point in his only race. Alonso has now a bigger advantage in the standings. But, when it was time for the Belgian Grand Prix, he got Kvyat for a second time, allowing Piastri and Hamilton to get closer. The race was completely dominated by the Haas drivers, who secured a 1-2 finish and were pushing for the Constructors' Championship, as Hamilton is still on the title fight. Piastri got the last place on the podium thanks to an error of Tsunoda, but still was 1 point behind Fernando. Alonso appeared on track on Singapore, but he was not the only one, as rain also made its appearance. The rain was becoming lighter and eventually disappeared, so drivers soon started to change to intermediate tiers. Piastri was one of the first ones, and Oswald took Hamilton with an undercut when he stopped. Alonso was leading and refused to stop, as well as Stroll, but he gave up with a few laps to go, so Fernando was alone. Piastri catch him, but the race ended just on time for Alonso to retain the lead in the standing and trying to claim the title in Abu Dhabi. Nobody knows how the Guanyu Zhou took pole position. It didn't last long, same as Piastri's front wing. This was absolutely perfect for Fernando, who started 16th but was overtaking everybody. Russell passed Zhou and led the race till the end. Fernando closed the line 2nd after passing Bottas, while Piastri at least managed to end up in 5th position. Zhou finished in 7th, getting good points for Aston Martin, but they were still last in the Constructors' Championship. The title will be given in the last race. It rained again, but this time it was the opposite as Singapore and rain was increasing. Piastri was leading, but Fernando was comfortably in third place. Then a safety car changed everything. Piastri changed to full wet when it came out, but neither Hamilton nor Alonso stopped and waited one more lap. It was critical, and Fernando came out of the pit in 6th position. With this result, he will be tied with Piastri, but he secured the fastest lap while the rain was lighter, so Piastri will be champion as it stands. Russell turned into Petrov 2.0 and Fernando was not able to pass. Nothing happened till the end into the extremely cruel and sad ending for Alonso. Piastri claimed the title thanks to a fastest lap and some masterclass in the use of the face mask, because he didn't got have it a single time, and it was the clue in the end. In my opinion, Fernando and even Hamilton performed better, but it is what it is.